Welcome, friends. I'm Julia Barry, and today I'm so excited to be talking with none other than Nana Dakin, someone whose thoughtfulness and brilliance and creativity inspires me all the time. You help me stay connected to good things that really are going on in the world, stuff that you're making, and everything that you're up to, and everything that you're learning. I know Nana as a theater maker, gardener, plant lover, someone who is helping create a kinder, healthier world. And I am so excited to have this chat with you. So, in your words, Nana, can you introduce yourself, whatever you want to say, name, pronouns, who you are, what you're up to in the world?
Yeah, thank you, Julia. Thanks for
Yeah.
inviting me here. So my name is Nana Dakin. I use she, her pronouns. I'm zooming in from my apartment in Crown Heights on the land of the Munsee Lenape and Canarsie people. And I'm so pleased and amazed that you're like, that you introduced me as a gardener. I'm like, am I a gardener? I have not actually really done that in the garden, but I am a plant lover, that is for sure. So I am a plant
The
lover.
gardener of life.
Um, yes, a gardener of life. But I first and foremost am a theater director. I'm a freelance theater director. Um, and yeah, I people often ask me, what sort of things do you direct? And I direct a lot of different kinds of work. From I like to direct devised plays, which means plays that don't start with a script, but start with an idea or a concept. I have done new plays uh, with playwrights who I have been in the room with, and also playwrights whose plays I have simply received, as well as like contemporary work, which are older things like you might think of like Arthur Miller plays. And I also like to direct classical work and musicals. So
Ah,
actually, one of the things that I will say to folks is the only thing that I don't direct are operas.
even that's up for debate, the line between musicals and operas. We can talk about that. That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about some of the projects you've done that relate to sustainability or climate change or I'm thinking of Love Letter to a Seed or Elephant, things like that.
Yeah, those are two projects that I worked on previously, but I can talk about one that I just did,
Oh yeah, I'd love to hear.
which and is currently in progress. So at the beginning of this year, in January 2025, I had a residency at this place called the Mercury Store, which is based in Gowanus, Brooklyn, and is a space in particular where they invite directors to come and do an experiment in 3 dimensions. And they are particularly interested in fostering things that are on the newer side of, in terms of like the development phase.
Love that.
And the project that I proposed was one that I want to say that I proposed last year before the election. But the title at the time and the title now is Terrible Things Are Happening and I Am Still Alive, and was really inspired by the way in which I feel like plants, and this is an idea that I really learned from Robin Wall Kimmerer in her book Braiding Sweetgrass, that plants are incredible teachers and survivors of terrible times. And so I feel like that's one of the things that I do in my apartment, and why I love where I live right now is I will sit and look at the plants. And I feel like looking at the plants helps me reflect as I look at them, and I think about like, how are they doing? What do they need? What are the conditions that they're currently in that are helping them to thrive or not? And it helps me reflect on my own conditions. And so because this is just like a way that I am in my home, I was also just thinking about like, what would it be like to create a performance or an installation where people could either watch this process happening, meaning that like how to turn to plants for wisdom and guidance on survival and endurance, or that they could be invited into a space like an installation space in which like they themselves have the opportunity to do that. And so this was my idea and the experiment being like, how would I do that? I don't
Yeah.
know. So the week was really, I had some ideas about like how to begin, and this definitely falls under the category of devised work. So I had some clear questions and some elements of storytelling, or you could say like theatricality or performance that I imagined being a part of the piece, but I didn't know how or if it would actually like fit together. Um, and so I invited two core collaborators to come and join me. One, her name is Risa Puno, and she is an incredible installation and interactive design artist. She creates a lot of public work and does a lot of like game design. And so thinks a lot about like people and space and objects and how we interact with each other. And the other collaborator, their name is Jen Anaya. And they were
Oh,
in the piece that you just mentioned, Mem Elephant. They were a performer
yeah.
in that piece. But we are also friends and actually neighbors who just like live about 5 minutes away from each other. And so I know them. I know that they are not just a performer, but they also play many different music instruments and also love plants. And so I invited them to join as a composer musician for this project because I was imagining that the way in which we would be having conversations with plants in this experiment, in this workshop, would be in a nonverbal way, so through movement. And where there is movement, there should be music, I think. And so I was like, well, it's either going to be music that I'm playing from a playlist on Spotify, or it could be live music if Jen comes and they can play music while we're working.
Cool. Yeah.
So that's what we did. So the three of us began to, I approached them about this idea and said, like, okay, here's where it came from and the elements that I think are a part of it. And I said, I know what we're going to do on the first day. And then I don't know what we're going to do. We'll do all
Then
of
we're
those
gonna do
things.
it together.
And then by the end of the
Yeah.
first day, we will know more. And then we'll be able to figure out, we'll decide together what are the questions that we want to keep asking, what are the experiments that we want to keep doing. And we had three actors from the Mercury store come and join us to help us test our ideas. And yeah, so we did that, and it was really great. And I think that this was a piece that was really specifically drawing upon knowledge and learning from two writers, and then from one experience that I have been having with an oracle deck, which is like a tarot card deck, but just
Cool.
using a different images and wisdom source essentially.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I want to name those writers. So one I already said, so Robin Wall Kimmerer and Braiding Sweetgrass. And then she also has a book called The Serviceberry, which just came out.
Oh,
And
nice.
then another book by a Lebanese American woman. Her name is Leila K. Fehali, and the book is called The Land in Our Bones. And both of those, in particular, Braiding Sweetgrass and The Land in Our Bones, um, in different ways, talk about how how plants hold so much wisdom. And I think that based on reading those books, it made me really want to think about the way in which like we are in relationship with plants, and also in particular to disrupt, I think, even like the way that I used to think about things, which is like humans are here, plants are here. And it's like, oh
Right.
no, we need to reverse that. Actually, plants are our elders. They're our ancestors. They have been alive for so much longer than we
Yep.
have. They know so
Yep.
much more than we do. And I think that I have been on my own journey and figuring out like how to listen and learn from plants. And I think that so that was something that I was curious about, like how to create a work that would be able to put put this practice into action.
Hmm. And was this a work that you filmed, or were there people watching it, or was it more just like the experience of doing it with the other artists? Like, is
It
this a
was
beginning seed of something else? Or,
This is
yeah.
100% a beginning seed. And we are so now, and it was also our first time between Risa, Jen, and myself collaborating together. So in that week, we were working in essentially like just in a room. But then there were other Mercury Store residents at that time, and so there's a sharing that we did, and that other people who were there also did. So there was a public sharing of a work, you know,
Hmm.
of where we were in our process, and we got to
Yeah.
explain what were the questions that we were thinking about, and yeah, so there has been like a presentation of some of pieces of it, of elements of it. But
Yeah.
we are currently the three of us in the process of figuring out. I think what that week helped to do was to show us what the project could be. So it went
Hmm.
from being sort of like an initial thought and many
Hmm.
questions to now having um, the three of us contributing to and figuring out like what are the tactile elements of this piece and the ways in which it can help to facilitate conversations between humans and plants and how we can receive plant wisdom.
Yeah. I love that. I'm blanking out. There's a book that I read that I always want to call The Secret Life of Plants, which is not called that. Um, I will find out what the name is and put it like in the caption with this video. But yeah, it was a book kind of speaking about research that scientists are doing about how plants communicate with each other and what they've been
Mm-hmm,
through over time and how they've adapted and been able to mimic other plants and all these kinds of things that I never even knew that plants could do. And also how controversial that has been as a subject matter over time in terms of, it kind of became like too woo-woo to talk about
mm-hmm,
um, if you were a scientist, but actually, like there is a lot going on scientifically that people can study in terms of, what plants are telling us, telling each other. Um, and it's cool that like that's finally coming into the conversation again because as you're saying, you know, people who have lived more closely with plants for thousands of years already know these things, and
mm-hmm.
have a lot to teach us. So, I love that you just happened to be doing that, and I didn't even know. And it's like it's so on topic for sustainability
Yes.
and sustainable
Yeah.
living and being in touch
I
with
also want
plants.
to, sorry to interrupt. I also want to
Yeah,
shout out in particular the Oracle deck, which is called Dirt Gems. Have you heard of it?
no.
It's excellent. I really love it. So, an Oracle deck, for anyone who doesn't know, is like a tarot card deck in the sense that it's a series of cards. But Oracle is different from tarot in the sense that a tarot deck will have major and minor arcana and like four different suits, and it follows like a particular kind of like structure and narrative. But an Oracle deck in general, sometimes people will have like Greek mythology oracle deck, you know, or like whatever it is. Like there's going to be some other sort of like knowledge source. And then each card usually has like a piece of advice or something. And so, like, a way that you use that deck is you might like pull a card a day or, you know, something like that. So,
So
Dirt
you can kind
Gems is
of
an oracle.
decide how you use it
Yes.
more.
Um,
Interesting.
but Dirt Gems is a plant oracle deck, and it is so beautiful. It's beautifully illustrated, it's beautifully written. And yeah, I really highly recommend it.
Do you have any gems that you remember that you would want to share as like an inspiring thing in this moment or something about our relationship with plants or having just come off this
Yeah.
project, or is that too hard to recall?
No, I think that what was actually really inspiring is that the folks who gathered on this project. So actually, I one of the ways in which I know Jen is that they early on in our friendship, they gave me they were in New York and then they had to leave for a residency and they had some plants and they're like, Nana, will you take care of my plants? And I had only just started. I became a plant mama during pandemic. You know, some people got pets, I got plants. And I was still, you know, sort of like a newbie. Like I was like, but I said yes, and they brought me like 4 or 5 plants, and I was like, whoa, and two of them really big. And so, but I took care of them, and everything went well. But in terms of like, I think of Jen as somebody who has like much more plant, is a more experienced plant person than I am. And then Risa, who was the other, was like, I'm like a plant newbie. Like I think I sort of kill plants and yeah, I don't feel confident.
Been there.
Yeah, which is what I said. I was like, me too. I used to think that
Yeah.
I really had this narrative and it was true about myself, which is that like I did kill plants. And the reason I know now that the reason why that happened is because I did not know how to pay attention to them. I didn't know how to be in relationship with them. Um, and the three actors who came and joined us on the project also were like, we're sort of like don't really know how to like we like plants, but we also don't know how to be in relationship with them. So all this to say that what is inspiring to me is that by the end of this residency, which was not a goal of the residency, but by the end of the residency, Risa and the three actors all were like, now we want plants.
Yes.
um and I think what happened, and I really think that what that was about like it was about relationship, it was about like helping them understand, which I think is something that I was really interested. So it's like if you're going to have a conversation with a person or with a plant, think about like how can you have a meaningful conversation. Sometimes you can have a conversation that is very transactional, right? Like where
Mhm.
you're like, I want this, you give me that, I'll do this for you, you do this for me. um
Yeah.
and that can, you know, that can happen. But I think that that's not, if you, I think one of the things that I believe, thanks to these writers and plant oracle deck that I mentioned and that I feel is that like actually if we are turning to plants for wisdom, if you turn to anyone for wisdom and for advice, it's helpful to approach them with some humility and with some respect, and be interested in who they are,
Mhm.
so that that will I think like really enhance your what you can learn from them. And so I think what felt inspiring from this project is that it was like, oh, it worked. At least on these
Yeah.
members of the people who are just like being involved in this, to be able to shift their own relationship from a place of I don't know and I'm scared,
Mhm.
and to being to going to a place where it's like I still don't know. You know, it's only like 5 days later, but I'm interested, you know, and
Mhm.
like and wanting to actually take their own first steps to figure out how to be in relationship with plants.
Yeah, and like open to possibility.
Mhm.
That's so beautiful and actually like weirdly in line with, or maybe not weirdly, I guess, because this also just happened now in this month and in this season. Um, but really kind of in line with the growing season starting right now, at least in New York and other parts of the world. Obviously, things are somewhat reversed. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, in our world, this is the moment for planting seeds. Um, some people also start planting seeds indoors, like in January and stuff. But in terms of like thinking what's happening for plants themselves when they drop the seeds, when they start growing, these kinds of things, Um, yeah, March is like this is that moment of going like, okay, what are we gonna start? Let's try it. Let's plant something and like pay attention to what we need to do to take care of this thing. And like nothing has sprouted yet. There's no big, huge, plant 10 years from now or harvest with fruit or whatever. So it's really cool that like at this moment, that's kind of what you were doing artistically, you know?
Well, actually, we were
Yeah.
doing it in January.
Oh, you were? Okay.
So yeah, that was when the residency happened. But actually from that experiment in January, Jen and Risa and I have continued to be in conversation, and so we are continuing to plant
Yay.
seeds from that time. And I think I resonate with what you're saying in terms of like the change of the season, and
Mm,
feeling um I think it really does do something to our bodies, to have more sunlight, to be experiencing more sunlight, to begin to see in the environment around us that like new life is
yeah.
springing up. And yeah, and to begin to think about, as you said, like the things that we want to bring into being.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think about that a lot, kind of what are the things that we want to plant to create the world that we wish to see, and like how do we imagine that, like what kind of things are seeds of future visions or, seeds of what we can do with other people and that kind of stuff. So I'm curious, like, kind of what does that mean to you both as like a plant lover and an artist, like, in this time when so much is uncertain or things are being undone or unplanted, if you want to go with that metaphor, like how do you see yourself kind of planting seeds for the world that you wish for?
Yeah, I think that I mean, I find the metaphor of thinking about uh seeds and soil and growth like very rich and very helpful for me as an artist.
Hmm.
And I think even before talking about the seed, we have to talk about the soil and the
Yeah,
conditions.
yeah,
And I think that that is that's probably the thing that I am thinking about the most at the moment. So a lot of the projects that I'm currently working on are in early stages, which is actually a really lovely place to be,
yeah.
um, because and has been a very helpful place to be in this political moment where I feel a lot of fear and anxiety about the changes that this current administration is putting into place and wants to put into place.
Hmm.
And so I think that uh, I think about like there is each seed itself, I feel like is its own little like tiny container of hope, so it's like
Hmm.
I hope that this seed is going to grow into whatever it is that you want it to grow into. So I think that there's something that feels really important and necessary about having those seeds or having those things that it's like no matter what the present conditions are, there's a thing that I wish for and that I want to have happen in the future, and that I can think about like what that is, and then also think about how to create the conditions now for that project, for that seed to then be able to grow. And I think that the very first thing is if I think about, so I'm like, I am the soil. I am the soil that this seed of an idea needs to grow from.
Right, right.
And so like, how am I doing? Oh my God, and just being like, and thinking about, so I think that's actually a really big part of it is thinking about like, how are what are the current conditions of my own ability to grow something?
Hmm.
And figuring out like practices and ways in which I can feel like I'm really in a place that that feels like it has energy, that feels like
Yeah.
it's ready
Nutrient
to
rich.
yeah, nutrient
Yeah.
rich.
Yeah.
um yeah, and so I think that I thinking about things in that way has shifted my mindset as an artist. I think like before I started this thinking about like my work and my life inside of this metaphor, I was really living inside of like the productivity metaphor of a machine
Yeah.
in capitalism, and so and the the feeling which I have had conversations with many people about this, about like to feel like if I'm not doing something, then if I'm not being productive, then I have no value. And for freelance artists or for anybody in which like you don't have a job that you're going to every single day in which like there are
Right.
specific tasks, I have had to figure out for myself like what does it mean for me to be quote unquote productive? And actually a better way for me to think about that is to say like what does it mean for me to like ready the conditions for things to grow?
Hmm.
And so sometimes what that looks like is like need to I need to rest, and I
Yeah.
actually most of the time it looks like that. And uh I struggle actually. Often I will go on dates and people will be like, "So, what do you do in your free time?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't." It's like hard to
I rest.
separate. It's like well, no, actually, I would say that it's like even resting. So there's very few
Mm,
things I think that I do that I'm like, this is totally unrelated to my artistic practice, or this is
right.
totally unrelated to what I am trying to do, which is to be a person who can grow and take care of ideas in the world and make and produce
Right.
them and make them
Right.
manifest.
Well, because
Um,
that's like who you are. So what you're doing as your artistic work is also that. So there isn't really this separation between like, I go here and I do this one thing and then I come home and I do a hobby or whatever, like,
yes, yes.
yeah, I mean, I think some people do have that separation and, it works
Mm-hmm.
for them, but I definitely know what you're talking about in terms of like, am I working? Am I playing? Am I doing both? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of just being me, and all of it is sort of part of it. And yeah, I mean, that definitely has its pros and cons, and like doesn't fit into a traditional question about like, so Dateland. Like, I'm gonna ask you this thing that I ask everybody else.
Yes.
What have you found a thing that you like to say in answer to
No, I will just give like a muddled, complicated answer.
You're like,
Um,
here's my paragraph.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's also it's interesting for people to know that you care so much about what you're doing that it's kind of one and the same thing,
Hmm.
like and that's why I thought of, you know, having this chat with you because I think, people who are trying to make the world a greener place, have healthier lives, have a more compassionate world, and are trying to figure out like what can I do to contribute to this, or how can I do this when I'm feeling so crappy about what's going on in the world. Like, it's really inspiring to hear from you that this is something that you really care about and you're out there doing this stuff in all these different ways, like as a person and as an artist. And just, knowing that and kind of having examples of like different ways of doing things, I think is really, really helpful. Like, I don't know if you have other people or sources or books or podcasts or things that you look to for that sort of inspiration that helps you kind of keep keep that nutrient rich soil that you're putting your
Yeah.
seeds of art in. Like that's a whole process that where like if we get burnt out or depressed or whatever, like
Hmm.
that soil kind of goes away. And then as artists, we
Yeah.
can't really create things that then can also like encourage other people to do what they're good at for the world too. So I'm curious, like,
Hmm.
where do you kind of nutrify is not a word, but I'm just gonna say it.
Hmm.
Because we were talking before about like, kind of shutting off some things that are like anti-nutrients, like draining your soil.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm also curious, sort of like, what are you bringing in that you might suggest to other people?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of naming names, I am a really big fan of Adrienne Marie Brown. And so I follow her on her many, many platforms. She has books, she has
She's so good
podcasts.
with the present.
And so specifically the podcast of hers that I'm listening to right now is How to Survive the End of the World, which she does with her sister Autumn Brown. And the other person that I learned, actually, the next two folks that I'm going to name, I learned from Adrienne Marie Brown by like following the people that she follows
Right.
and that she learns from. So Prentice Hemphill, they wrote a book called, I think it's called like How to, How to Heal
We'll put this one
Ourselves.
in the comments too.
Yeah, I'll put it in the comments. But uh yeah, they wrote a book that came out recently, which I think is excellent, which is essentially about like thinking about like how to think about like the ways in which our personal healing is connected to the healing of the society that we are in as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Alexis Pauline Gumbs is an incredible author. She just wrote a book that is a biography of Audre Lorde. Uh,
Mm.
and that is called Survival is a Promise, The Eternal Life of Audre Lorde. And it is a thick book. You could weightlift with it, that I highly, highly recommend. It was really felt Alexis Pauline Gumbs is a poet, and I mean a poet and a nonfiction writer. And does she write fiction? I'm not sure. But the way in which she wrote this biography of Audre Lorde is so beautiful. It's a non-linear biography. So it's also very unexpected in the way that it talks about Audre Lorde's life. And also felt like, and very connected in particular to thinking about our relationship between like ourselves, our society, and the environment and the actual living conditions that we are in.
Mm-hmm.
um so yeah, those are the things in terms of like
Great.
naming names. But I will also shout out so Risa, my collaborator on Terrible Things, that's the nickname, but Terrible Things Are Happening and I Am Still Alive is the full title. um Told me about a TED Talk that's called Seven Different Types of Rest, which
Oh, yeah.
exists out there. And the conversation that we had together about rest, from that, based on that TED Talk, I was transformative to me, because the seven different kinds of rest are, let's see if I can remember them right now. It's mental rest, social rest, sensory rest, uh creative rest, physical rest, and spiritual rest. Oh no, there's one more. Can't remember it right
I'm
now.
really impressed that you even got to six. It's like, I
Yeah.
can remember
Um,
maybe one thing at a time. That's great.
and
Yeah.
Risa was talking about how it was really helpful to her to hear this podcast because, or to think about this idea, because she is somebody who struggles with physical rest.
Mhm.
Um, but then when she was like, oh, but there are other ways in which I can rest. Um, and I think that for me, that has also been like extremely helpful in figuring out like, when it feels obvious, and it's like when you feel like tired or burnt out or anxious, and you're like, oh, the antidote to this is I should rest. But what is the rest that you can actually, what is actually restful?
What is the
And I think
content of the resting? Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so actually beginning to think about it in these different ways was really helpful to me because sometimes, especially as a theater director, I spend a lot of time engaging with people and especially and if I'm in rehearsal. And sometimes I would like come back from rehearsal and be like, I was only in like a 3 hour rehearsal. I feel so tired. Why am I so tired? And it's like, oh, because I've just been like really social. And I think I was asking myself, why am I so tired? I was just sitting there, like I wasn't actually
Mm,
moving around. Um, and I realized it's like, oh, because I was working really hard in these other ways, in like a creative
right.
way, in sort of like social engagement, sensory sometimes. And so the rest that I need sometimes from that, actually often, is I want to like binge watch TV. And I realize now, I used to think that that was physical rest for me. I'm like, I'm just going to be a couch potato. I'm not going to move. I'm just going to watch TV
Hmm.
on my streaming service. Um, but I realize now that I was like, oh, that is not physical rest. That's mental rest for me. That helps me
Yeah.
like switch off and be like, now I'm just gonna like watch this thing. And that's real mental rest for me. But I used to wonder, why is it that sometimes I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna rest tonight. I'm just gonna stay home and binge watch TV. And then I wake up the next day and still feel physically tired. And it's like, oh, because that was mental rest, but actually for me, that was not good physical rest. And I realize now that it's like better physical rest for me actually is taking a bath. That's actually going to like relax my muscles or like
Right.
shift my body. Or better physical rest would actually come from like stretching or doing, but so it's
Right.
so just being able to begin to separate. And I realize, and maybe this is no, I think I did list this, but I realized that like creative rest is really hard for me to access because
Mhm.
creative, that's my work. And so like I don't rest creatively.
Right.
Um, and so it's interesting to know that, like to be like, oh, that, so some people, for example, like to color, it's like, I'll just color. That's really restful for me. You're like, that would not be restful for me. But what is restful for me is so in sort of being able to acknowledge it's like, I'm not going to really be able to do like creative rest, but I can do sensory rest. That I can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Um, and so that I actually do that a lot at home, where I'm just like, actually, I just need to sit here with my cup of tea and there's nothing
Watch your
else
plants
going
grow.
on. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I I, I do want to watch this TED Talk. I feel like I've seen some posts about like these different kinds of things, different kinds of rest, but actually delving more into like what does that mean and what does that help us feel and do and like where do we get the inspiration for resting from and all of that kind of stuff
Hmm.
like you said, kind of living in a society that's obsessed with productivity, it's kind of up to us to actually learn what we need and what how we're going to carve it out and how we're going to connect and all that kind of stuff. Is there
Hmm.
anything that you feel like um in the rest realm that you have learned from plants or from planting seeds and watching them grow or just like doing things at that speed kind of more in touch with the natural world around you?
I think that the biggest lesson that I have learned is about conditions. And so, like, the conditions of the plants, for example, is like the amount of light that they're getting. And this has been like a lesson that I have learned over time because when I was a newbie plant person, I would like, get the label and say, like, well, it says that this plant likes this kind of light. And then I would try to like create, do that. And
Yeah.
sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't. And so it's interesting. So I feel like that has actually been like a subtle that comes from observing them and being like, do you like the conditions that you're currently like where you are right
You
now?
look a
Is
little
this the right
sad.
amount of light? Is
Yeah.
this, is it too cold? Is it too warm? And so actually paying attention to that and also thinking about like the conditions of their soil. So like what's the watering schedule, right? Like how much water are they getting? Um, I think all of those paying attention to plants in that way, noticing what conditions help them thrive and what conditions are more difficult, helps me reflect on my own and to think
Yeah.
about like, what are the conditions that I am currently in? What can I shift about them? What do I actually, yeah, what are the conditions I actually need be
Hmm.
able uh, to be able to thrive?
Yeah. One of the things I think about is like also the size of where the plant is planted. And
Mm-hmm.
some plants really like to be in a small space and kind of like feel their roots. And some really like need a lot of air. And,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's also different at different points in the life cycle of what's going on with the plant and things like that. So that's also something that I've thought about in terms of like the balance of what's going on
Mm-hmm.
and maybe the conditions that I needed before are not the conditions that I need now. And that same thing is going on with other people too. So, like, checking in with other people on kind of what they need at the moment and like, is the thing that we were doing still serving the thing that we're doing now? And I mean, that's definitely something that's relevant for artistic collaboration, but that's something that I've applied, you know, to really everything in life, just all different relationships and projects and things that we might be involved in. So yeah, I'm with you on like just even stopping to pay attention to the conditions and sort of backing up and saying, okay, let's put some focus here. Like that can be pretty powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to just be mindful of your time. I'm so grateful for everything and anything that you have shared. Um, I am curious, maybe we can end on something that is like helping you stay motivated right now. We might be doing things that we don't necessarily see the ultimate outcomes of, and that can be kind of hard work to be doing. Um, so if you have any thoughts on kind of like how you stay motivated to continue and to keep, learning and making and trying and all of that, I would love to hear it.
Um, I think actually one of the things that has been really grounding for me is my home and caring a lot about my home and feeling good inside my home. And this is something, so I think the easy way to think about this is that it is, this is, my home is where my roots are. So I feel like the more that I can like feel rooted and root down, the more capacity that gives me to be able to like stretch out or to try to do other things, to have the energy uh, to grow. And I think that being home and what it means to like feel really good at home, is also something that is personally for me, something that feels very special because I grew up moving around, living in a lot of different places, and so it feels like very meaningful to me to feel rooted and to feel really good in my home. Um, and yeah, so I think that would be the thing.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Well, where can people find you online and check out your work, or what's something that you'd like to share to send people to?
Yeah, you can go to my website, which is my first and last name together, nanadakin.com. And a work that besides terrible things are happening and I am still alive, that's ongoing. But the next thing that will have a public sharing is going to be in May. And it is the culmination of a year-long fellowship that I received from Yangtze Repertory Theater. And this fellowship was essentially for me to be able to um, research and grow something that I was interested in as an artist, which is a really wonderful opportunity and is very process oriented as opposed to like results centered. And I was interested in exploring questions about Thai women's ambition. So I am Thai American. And last year I was struggling with questions about my ambition and the ways in like, the things that I want to achieve. And I was thinking about like how I was managing that struggle and thinking about the ways in which my cultural identity as a Thai person helped me through that. And so this piece, or what I'll be sharing, is like the result of a year-long research process that I've been
Mm,
in, interviewing Thai women in America specifically, and interviewing them through Zoom interviews, but also working with Thai women performers who are based here in New York City. And so I'll be presenting two works in progress from one seed bed of questions that I was asking, two different projects
amazing.
emerged. And
Amazing.
so one is a dance theater piece, which is called Grit Grin. And then another, which is going to be essentially like an expressionistic, abstract, metaphorical reflection of Thai women's ambition. And then the other piece is a comedic drama about two Thai women chefs pursuing their ambitions, very much realistic.
Amazing. Can you still hear me? I feel like something happened with my
I
headphone.
can't, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Like I almost made it the full hour before it shut off. Oh my goodness. Well, that sounds really exciting, and please send me the information and stuff to that so I can link to it for everybody. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your glowing self with everybody. And yeah, I appreciate you so much and all of the kind of growing metaphors that you've brought into my life.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Julia. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure to be speaking with you, and thank you for your time.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.